when you've got
Are you ready?
I'm ready. If everybody.
All right, we'll light these candles.
Yeah,
Ready?
our other two, you know, but we heard from so.
I'd like to call this school board meeting of the school district of Sturgeon Bay to order for Wednesday, November 15th. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. First, we are going to do a roll call.
Commissioner Haas,
Here.
Commissioner Wood,
Here.
Commissioner Chisholm is excused tonight. Commissioner Jenner
Here.
Commissioner Stefani,
Here.
Commissioner Cruz,
Here.
Commissioner Howard,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz is excused, and Commissioner Spritka.
Here.
Great. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented in your board packet, or actually on your person here at the table?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Spritka and seconded by, I heard, Ms. Jenner first, so Mrs. Jenner, so we're gonna do that, for the second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have a adopted agenda. So next, we have a student council report. And normally we have student council president Kirsten Mellon, but we have the VP, as it were, Libby Shear tonight. So what's going on? Welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for doing
It's
this.
great to be here. Well, we are basically just planning more for next month, just like our setup. So we've been working towards the talent show and all like the fun things leading up to winter break. So we're signing up acts for the talent shows during lunch on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we're gonna we started a Instagram account, so we're gonna advertise on there a lot. And then we are also we have dress up days that we have to discuss. We're having another meeting early December, and one thing that we're trying to get kids to do is show their spirit a lot more, and a lot of people don't do that if there isn't an incentive. So we're gonna do a lock-in for the winning class, so that'll be a lot of fun. And December 9th, we are planning to do a shopping at Target for less fortunate families for Christmas, and that'll be a lot of fun. Feels great to give to other people. And we're using that money from the candy cane sales last year. So this year we're also working on candy cane sales from December 4th to December 20th. And we are planning to put messages, because like we get to put cool, cute messages on it for anyone that wants to, and pass them out on the 22nd, right before we leave for winter break.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you. Anyone questions?
We often like to ask our student council reps what they're thinking about doing in the future,
Oh,
right? So
that's a tough question.
that's okay. That's all right. It's sometimes interesting to have the conversation as we go through the school year, right? And look to the future. So what are you thinking about right now, doing?
I haven't applied yet, but I'm looking towards lacrosse and Eau Claire. I'm not sure what I wanted to study, but I'm thinking like either very broad. It's like engineering to like education or like business. A lot of options, so
Excellent.
yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's good to have possibilities. Isn't it? Yeah, well, good for you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, board members, either a question for her or anything student council related, as you'll hear more, I'm sure, in the future. Otherwise, good job on your board report.
Way to
Thank
go.
you.
Way to go.
Thanks for
Thank you
coming.
very much. Have a great night.
You too.
Next, we have the public comment section. Do we have one for the public comment section? I'm looking, not seeing anywhere here. Otherwise, I'll read the kind of the rules of that, but otherwise I think we can just keep going. No public comments. So then next we are down to the consent agenda, and the consent agenda consists of the following. I'll read. Point one, approve boarding, the meeting minutes of the October 25th, 2023 regular Board of Education meeting. We also have the approval of the October bills, which is in your packet. 3 grants and donations. We had Loaves and Fishes donated $4,000 to the Sawyer Sunrise for School Snacks. Clipper Nation, Annette Andropoulos, did $30 for Clipper Nation. Stoneman Schaff Agency $25 for the same, and Door County Medical Center $500 for Clipper Nation. The Playground Fund continues to get donations. Employees of Nicolay Bank $1,000, and David Usiger here $250. We also have Blackboard Giving Fund. That's the Auto Club Group, $9.59 general donation to high school. Additional, we have Ryan Fellhofer $50 for the band gift, and Dennis Connolly has donated $500 to the New York choir trip. Resignations and retirements. Chad Shevchik is stepping down as middle school wrestling coach. Kim Nimmer has resigned from her position as special ed teacher associate position in the high school. And is it Leanne Pinker? Leanne Pinker, excuse me, has resigned as head coach of cross country. Michelle Statz has resigned from her teacher associate position. Point 5, second reading of the Neola board policy updates. Those updates are as presented under section 5. A motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented in this and in the packet is recommended.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Jenner, seconded by Commissioner Hawes to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So now we are down to the operations agenda, and we have the first order of business here is notice of Board of Education election on April 2nd of 2024.
Yes, here's our official notice that has to be given by the end of the calendar year. The school board election will be held on April 2nd, 2024. 3 board members whose terms of office will expire in April of 2024 are Commissioner Roger Wood, Commissioner Damian Howard, and Commissioner Angie Cruz. Additionally, we know there's a 1-year appointment of Commissioner Wayne Spricka that will be expiring in April of 2024. As a result, there will then be a 2-year term of office for the final years of, again, the seat held by Wayne, who initially, if you recall on the ballot itself, was Scott Elger, right, who moved just outside of the district. I'll continue. The 3 leading vote getters in the April election would receive the 3-year terms, with the 4th leading vote getter getting the remaining 2-year term. This then kind of puts us, quote unquote, back on schedule, with 3 3-year terms being up for election each year, then kind of getting back into the April of 2027 rotation. Again, in our board, as some of you have gone through this before, right? We've had some appointments, and then it's a matter of it's 1 or 2 years remaining, depending on when different board members have had things going on. So finishing off the notice here, rather than the explanation of our unique situation, declarations of candidacy and campaign registration statements will be available in the school district office here at 1230 Michigan Street during regular school hours, starting on Friday, December the 1st, 2023. The declarations of candidacy and campaign registration statements must be filed in the district office no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. I know to some of us, 2024 sounds like a long way off, but yeah, believe it or not, it is. Next year in really less than a couple of months. So anyway, that's the notice. No board action is necessary, but we're supposed to cover that. Mrs. Demise will have paperwork and everything all ready to go. But there is the notice there. I'll pause. President Stefani, I don't think there was anything else we wanted to cover, but should I just pause in case you or anyone has anything to add?
No, I don't have any. You've outlined it pretty well.
All right. Associated with that, should I continue to the next item?
Yes, we appoint assistant board clerk.
Yeah, here I think we're just one of those, we always try to do things right by the book, right? dot our i's, cross our t's. So this is how our district has done this in the past. So a motion to approve the district administrator to the position of assistant board clerk for the purposes of accepting Board of Education election documents as requested. This is the practice that we've used in the past as a convenience to our board clerk and potential board candidates, right? Practically speaking, what that means then is people can come in and get materials from Mrs. Denise or myself, right? Since we're the ones typically around the office anyway. A motion to approve district administrator's assistant board clerk to assist with the collection of Board of Education election documents is recommended.
I move to approve or move to appoint the district administrator as the assistant board clerk to assist with the collection of Board of Education election documents.
Second. Right, we have Commissioner Jenner has made the motion and Commissioner Wood has seconded the motion to appoint the district administrator as assistant board clerk to assist with the collection of Board of Education election documents. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So now we are down to approving the library plan in the packet.
Yeah, this is kind of just nothing, no cause for concern, but there've been a little bit of changes at the state level. And thankfully, we have a librarian who's been on top of what this means. So here we go. In the past, the district library plan was actually part of a district technology plan. However, district technology plans are no longer required by the Department of Public Instruction down in Madison. So as such, the district library plan is moved to a standalone 5-year plan. A well-developed long-range library plan implemented with fidelity allows for library programs to effectively increase student achievement, provide equitable resources to all, and also be a key collaborative element of various district and school learning initiatives. Our school district of Sturgeon Bay Library, Mrs. Holly Selly, developed our current library plan using tools based on what's called the Future Ready Librarian Framework. Just as we would not teach without a curriculum or lead a district without some sort of vision, a school library should not be without a plan implemented as a foundation of a successful program. I'll just add one additional note. Timing wise too, we were initially going to do this in December, but the state of Wisconsin linked having this plan approved to a data snapshot poll that they'll be doing in the first week of December. So rather than have you do this in December when we were initially thinking, we moved it to the November meeting. So again, no cause for concern, but just read the occasional article right now about library plans in some districts. I'll be honest, don't have one ready to go. And it's also possible that one or more districts in the area may have a plan that ends up looking pretty much just like ours, which I guess is okay, right? Isn't flattery one of those compliments? So a motion to approve the library plan as presented is recommended.
I'll make a motion to approve the library plan as presented.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Oz and seconded by Commissioner Howard to approve the library plan as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're down to approving athletic coaches. We have an A and a B, 5A and 5B. First is John Jandron as the middle school head wrestling coach.
Yeah, we've got a couple of these for the board. There's actually a couple others that came in after the deadline that we have time to act on next month. So we've got those, but those will wait with the timeline. So Principal Smullen and Athletic Director Michael recommend Dr. John Jandron. John plays a huge role within our high school teaching staff and has prior experience coaching for the youth wrestling program. John also wrestled throughout middle school and high school years while he attended a certain neighboring district to the south. A motion to approve John Jandron as the middle school head wrestling coach is recommended.
I'll make the motion to approve Dr. Jandron as the middle school head wrestling coach.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Spritka and seconded by Commissioner Cruz to approve John Jandron as the middle school head wrestling coach. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
For the written record, in case anyone sees a couple of us smiling, I said neighboring district to the south. Don went to Southern Door, so you know there.
Yeah.
I initially held that back, but I didn't want someone wondering about why a couple of us are smiling. So
So 5B, we're down to Catherine Dragon as the assistant boys swim coach.
Yes, Principal Nerby and Athletic Director Michael recommend Catherine Dragon. Catherine is currently employed as a lifeguard trainer at the Door County YMCA and has experience as a swimming instructor and as a high school swimmer. So motion to approve Catherine Dragon as an assistant boys swim coach is recommended.
I make a motion to approve Catherine Dragon as assistant boys swim coach.
Second.
Perfect. We have a motion by Commissioner Howard and seconded by Commissioner Haas to approve Catherine Dragon as the assistant boys swim coach. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we are down to point 6A, which is approved teacher associates, high school special education teacher associate, Amy Lagerquist.
Yeah, we've got two secondary associates here for your consideration tonight. Principal Nerby and Special Education Director Ferry recommend Amy Logerquist for the teaching associate position. Amy's been previously, or has previously worked, at Turning Point with students and adults with disabilities. She brings a strong background to this particular position, and the team looks forward to her start very soon. Motion to approve Amy Logerquist as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I move to approve Amy Lagerquist as special ed teaching associate.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Jennerjan and seconded by Commissioner Cruz to approve Amy Lagerquist as the high school special education teacher associate. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And now we're down to B, which is high school special education teacher associate Jill K.
Yes, thank you. Yes, second recommendation, just as you saw the two resignations in the earlier meeting section. Principal Nerby and Director Ferry recommend Jill Kay for a special education teaching associate position, both at the middle and high school. Jill is a longtime resident of our district and has the passion for working with our young students with disabilities. Motion to approve Jill Kay as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I'll move to approve Jill Kane as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
Second, all right. We have a motion by Commissioner Jennerjan, seconded by Commissioner Haas to approve Jill K as the high school special education teacher associate. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And now we are down to my favorite, the approval of the 2024-2025 school year calendar.
Say favorite because we're always happy when we approve this and move down to other things.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
I'll just summarize the description. Board members, you've seen this information several times in our process each year, but for anyone tracking this, or maybe any staff that hadn't read the previous updates. So we know historically, at least during my time that I can speak to firsthand, we've tried to get the calendar approved kind of on the front end of the spectrum compared to how many districts look at it. I know I've corresponded with some neighbors and other colleagues recently that are kind of working through the process. So we like to take care of that in November, so families have plenty of time. Of the highlights, and again, as you know, there were different drafts and different considerations, and we've got a system for some teacher rep input, board input, et cetera. So really kind of a summary of some of the main dates. Like I said, I'm not going to read all of this. The first day of classes next year for us would be Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Next bullet point, this would put winter break at 12 days long, running from the end of school on December 20th through Wednesday, January 1st, with classes restarting then on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025, which again, sounds really far out there, doesn't it? Spring breaks, and sometimes people like a chance to plan ahead well in advance, would be from the end of the half day of school on March 21st to March 30th. Classes then would restart on Monday, March 31st, which as an aside is nicer than some years when we restart on April 1st. And then people wonder, is it April Fools? The last day of classes would be scheduled for Friday, June 6th, 2025. Again, pending any makeup days due to, we really had a lot of snow, cold, ice days. Although again, we've got a system where we can usually avoid that unless it goes too far. As you also know, this would actually reflect 179 days of school. We traditionally shoot for 180. So There'd be the replacement day with an August in-service day for staff, so that's taken care of. Very similar to how we approached the calendar back in 2021, 2022. I'll just, again, comment for anyone from the public. We're not required to have X number of days anymore like the old days. It's all about instructional hours and minutes. We have more than enough instructional hours and minutes. That's why I comment that on that 179. And then again, a little bit of quoting with some of the elementary parent teacher conferences. I don't need to reread to that. The board has seen that. So based on all that information or those highlights, a motion to approve the calendar for the 2024-2025 school year as presented is recommended.
I move to approve the calendar for the 2024-2025 school year as presented.
Second. Oh, my man.
We have a motion by Commissioner Cruz, seconded by Commissioner Spricka to approve the calendar for the 2024-2025 school year as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're down to the reports section of the agenda. I'm gonna actually start going back to, you know, some of the other things that maybe board people would have, like, do we have any legislative? Anyone have anything on that front?
I believe some of our reps down to Madison just concluded their session this morning, or I'm trying to think of the exact timing, in the last X number of hours. I forget exactly.
Hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got
Got an update today.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of wound down in the off season.
Then next would be CISA. Any CISA reports, committees or seminars anyone has been to that we should report on?
I will comment, just a reminder, you've heard from Ann and me, right? But if you're interested in attending the annual education convention, the largest educational related convention in the state of Wisconsin, that's coming up in January, right? Ann's got that information for us. I can just remind you the dates. Rather than risk getting them wrong, I'll flip to the proper page in my old fashioned calendar here. Ann will get us, because we've got until a certain date to get the early bird discount. If you don't think you can go now, and then later you find out you can go, it's fine, obviously, right? No problem, but just if we know someone plans to, we'd like to take the discount, and she's on top of the hotel rooms and everything for us. So we would typically go down Tuesday, January 16th. We typically head down kind of in the afternoon and evening, right? So people have at least a chunk of the day with work, family, etc. We're typically down there all day on Wednesday the 17th. Members of the board often head back at some point, usually midday on Thursday, January 18th, kind of after the morning session. However, your paid registration does carry you through until the conference concludes, just kind of at the beginning of lunch or right before lunch on Friday the 19th. So Jake and I usually stay down from Tuesday through Friday and go to a variety of different things. Again, sometimes between work and kids to and from school and all that thing, you know, all that, members often head back on the 18th. Point being, we've also had board members that, you know, busy schedule but want to get down, have gone down for maybe just the day on, say, Wednesday. So we've done different things. I know we had plans last year, and then that weather was coming in, and thankfully wasn't nearly as bad as they were first suggesting. But there was concern, right? Several of you that came down didn't want to risk getting stranded and that whole thing. So anyway, that's kind of what we've got. So again, Tuesday the 16th is when we typically would come down. You're welcome to stay as long as you like, often coming back the 18th. You could come back the 19th, depending on your schedule. So just remember to let us know. I know a few people have already let us know what their plans are, whether they believe they can go or no, they can't. No problem. I'll just give you that reminder with the seminar. So
Where is it again?
it's down at the Wisconsin Center. Actually, that was renamed now, wasn't it? With kind of a combination of the big addition, but downtown Milwaukee. Downtown Milwaukee. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They're in the process, if you haven't seen the construction down there, some of us saw last year, right? Really increasing it by, I'm trying to think, is about 40% in size. I don't think it's doubling necessary, but it is. It's massive. It's just down the street from like the Pfizer Forum where the Bucks play or Marquette plays. It's by the old Mecca, some of us know from different events or sporting events. We usually have a hotel that's kind of right there that we can walk, so we don't need to worry about driving and those extra expenses. We can just walk back and forth.
And they feed you a lot of food.
Yeah, different, imagine that, there's different receptions and, yeah. So we usually have to spend very little money on those types of things and it works out.
Yeah.
And it's nice to not just have our reps have a chance to get to know each other better and learn, but it's kind of neat, as some of you have seen, right? You can interact with some board members from elsewhere and you'll laugh about some of the people that Jake and I bump into that we know and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, there's a few.
You will learn something. I found it very, very informative last year. So, especially because last year was the arguing about school funding, we'll say it politely, so. And Governor Evers did come to the convention, which was nice, and spoke. So it was definitely worth the time going down there. So I think we are down to, we're gonna run down, right down the list. High school, is Mr. Nervy here?
Yep.
I can't, oh, you're behind the pole. I didn't see it.
As he's coming on down, and there are a couple of emails this afternoon. If you saw them, great. If not, no problem. What the team has communicated about previously and what we reviewed in our board meeting or our admin meeting today, I apologize, is that rather than hit the highlights of their submitted report like they normally would do, they're kind of preparing some thoughts, really kind of from a couple of different angles. One, so yesterday becomes the public release of the state report card system, right? And newsflash, there's some pieces out of that aren't as good as we want, and there's some pieces that are pretty impressive, right? So showing work. So really what the team members talked about this morning to kind of coordinate some comments for you tonight is give you a break from the usual report and just kind of talk to you about some of the key things happening at each school. And then again, we can slide you some other materials and report card stuff and whatnot as we go, of course. But again, not just about the report cards, although that's timely. What are some of the key things that, again, in this case, Keith can tell you he and his staff are working on, most importantly for the benefit of current and future high school students. Principal Nervy, it's all yours.
Yeah, so yesterday or within the last 24 hours or so, the report cards were released. We've had them for a couple of weeks to take a look at, and not gonna lie, pretty disappointed, to be very honest with you, with how our report card came out at the high school. But I will share kind of some of what we're doing and how we break down that report card. So the good news is our report card does show, and I mentioned it kind of, I think, last month, our students at the high school in math and literacy are above the state average. So we're scoring above the state average, which when you look at our overall score is kind of hard to comprehend, if I'm going to be honest with you, because the reality is our score it shows us meeting few expectations on the state report card, which is disappointing both as a principal and as a parent. I have my own kids here in the district, right? But when you break that down, what we find out is 54 or 57% of our score is completely tied to student growth. So while our students are performing well, what we're discovering and what we're seeing is that from one test to the next, our students are not growing like they should, like we want them to. That is an area of concern, and one that we've honestly seen for several years. The test itself is made up of kind of a 3-year rolling average. And so while we started working on this last year and putting things in place, if you remember, we created the Clipper time to try and create some of those intervention opportunities for students. It is taking some time to see those results and see what that's going to look like. But that's one of the pieces that we put in place with our report card. So as that data comes through, the 3-year rolling average, and so we're working on getting that up, which is obviously part of that. In the high school, what makes up the report card 2 primarily is two assessments, the pre-ACT and the ACT, and how students grow from one to the other is what makes up that 57%, if you will, of the report card. I was in here last month, so just last week, we took the fall pre-ACT. We've never done that before. One of the great things and one of the reasons we wanted to do that was because it gives us such great data. When our students take the ACT, they take it and then they move on. And we get the data, but there's really nothing we can do with the data for those sets of students who've taken it. Here, by having our freshman, sophomore, and junior students take the pre-ACT, we're able to keep those test booklets. In just a couple of weeks, we're going to get those results back. And we're going to be able to look at and find those areas where our students not performing well? What are we lacking? What are we missing? What are some of the trends that we're seeing? And then our teachers are taking that and putting it directly into their curriculum every day. What are we looking at? How do we help our students? How do we grow our students? So a huge portion of that is our struggling students just not making the growth that they need to make. Obviously, that's a huge concern and one that we're very concerned about and worried about. So some of the things that we've put in place, we've worked with CISA 6. We've had them come in and work with staff to really dig deep into our data. Data is one of those words that, some people love it, some people aren't sure what it means. You can twist data, but one of the things that we're really looking at is our students by name, by face is one of the things that if you ask my staff, they'll say, I say it a lot. We're not looking at averages, we're not looking at percentages, we're really looking at individual students. We're a size of the school, we can say, this student needs this. And how are we providing it for our individual and specific students? And so by bringing in a representative from CISA 6 to help us kind of look at that data, that was a big piece of what we're able to do, really explore and look at that. We're also able to look at some of the testing, and we're gonna, like I said, see where some of those trends are and what that looks like for our individual classes and the work that we're doing. So in addition to that, the clipper time, we're looking at redoing how we do clipper time, still keeping it in there, but really creating those specific interventions. So if students are lacking in these foundational skills, we're going to have a clipper time offering of those foundational skills that students will be put into to be able to better utilize those. We don't want to just, I worry, and I'm being honest for those listening and those here, like, we don't want to teach to the test, that's not the point, but the test measures things that we want students to do well at and things that students should be doing well at. And so we are using that test to help guide some of those instructional pieces that we're looking at. So while the data is not great, that's putting it in, data is not great, we do have those strategies and those things in place that can address that and work with the students and our staff on how to do that. I do always think this is one test and one snapshot, and while it is very public, I think it's also a piece, and I was talking to Dan earlier, and I'm like, just in September, so just a few months ago, right? US News and World Reports came out and ranked us as the #1 high school in Door County and in the top 15% of high schools in the entire state. So it's all the measurement and what we look at, but there's a lot of great things going on. I think we have a lot of really good people in place. And so it's just kind of building on that and continuing to work on that. And so I'm excited about what we're doing. I'm not excited about what that shows, but I do think we have things in place to address that. So, that's just one of those pieces that I want to come up and share. Questions or yeah.
I just had a question about like the ACT. So from when, say, I took it in high school or whatever, so now, how have they like kept up with like the changes as far as like how kids learn and, the different ways that teachers teach and stuff like that? How is the ACT like, kept up with that and measured against like when it was years back and stuff? You know what I mean?
Like how students learn now versus maybe how they did 15,
Absolutely.
20, 25 years ago?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the ACT does try to kind of reinvent itself or really try to apply different structures. It's still a standardized test given at one time to students, right? So you're always going to deal with that, and it's measuring all students regardless of what they might be facing or where they might be coming and that kind of thing. And so while the test itself sometimes, looks at things a little differently or might tweak, some of the questions it asks, it still is that one day, one test for all students, regardless of anything. And I mean, the truth is, over the years, our families are facing different or more challenges than maybe our demographics or your families did 10, 15, 20 years ago. So we know that our students are coming from different places with a lot of different issues being brought into the school. And honestly, that's why one of the other areas that we're really focusing too is just on our student, how much they believe in themselves. Really, their level of confidence is really a big piece of what we're trying to do too, because our students are coming in at different levels, whether it be, and I hate, and I'm not using COVID as an excuse, please know that, and I really hope we get to a point where we don't have to utter that phrase ever again, but it hit families very differently. My kids, have a husband, dad and mom who are both in education, have resources available to keep them going and have them do things. Not every family was in that same position, or had that. And so the learning loss or the skills or some of those things are so different for every family. And we are still, you know, and not to say anything about my friends Katie's over there, right? But my wife's an elementary teacher, and she, you know, we do talk about like, she's gonna be through that COVID piece here within the next year or two, where those kids really weren't impacted at all. We're gonna be dealing with that at the high school level for a little bit longer. We just do have to acknowledge that and know that our students are at different places. So very long-winded answer to your
That's
question.
all right.
Maybe a quick add to that, Keith, like, so ACT back in the day, right, paper, pencil only, like, how does that work nowadays?
Yeah, so this year, so the pre-ACT was paper pencil, the one we took, just last week. But our students will be doing the ACT online, so it is a little bit different format. You know, it's a lot of reading and then answering questions based off of that reading. But our students will be doing it online, which is a change from, years ago or how things were done in the past. That's a piece of it.
Is the ACT required in Wisconsin?
Yes, so, all students, all juniors, are given the ACT. Yeah. In Wisconsin, I should say.
For many of us, it was an optional, right? I know you've lived outside the state too, obviously, Allison, right? But so back in the day, in fact, even earlier in my principal days, right? Only some students chose to take the ACT, right? And then along the way, that changed where it became all juniors taking it, right? So there was kind of a reacclimation, recalibration, maybe I should have said, along the way. But I think there were a couple other people that had questions or comments with that.
I do, Keith. Just to clarify, you said every, like the test that was showing the test that showed where your data is coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
You're saying every student took the test? And so go ahead,
No, I don't want to, so,
like even
Every-
those that may have.
Some of our special ed students. maybe,
Yeah,
you know,
or
yeah.
like, you know, typically there's concessions for like test takers, they get extra
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case.
so, yes and, yes and no, right? It's like everything. So the test is given to all students.
Mhm.
I should say 99%, 98% of students. There are some students who are exempt. But the vast majority of all students, including our students, with special needs,
Mhm.
take the test. There are, students who, do get extra time, because of their, you know, what's written in their IP or that sort of thing. So there is that, piece that's given to students.
Okay,
If it's in their IP.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so they do receive that.
Yep, so we'll have some that get extra time, some that maybe, can have it read to them depending on the level of what they need. Some that are pulled out and put in, you know, like smaller groups or
Yep.
that sort of thing, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
I don't know how to ask this question because I don't know if you track this data. So of that data, of the ACTs, what about, do you track the data for those that take secondary education, like meaning technical school, college, what have you? Do you break that out like and look backwards and say, okay, Sturgeon Bay is, you know, for those students that are going on to secondary, any kind of secondary, they are in the pack, better, worse, whatever, than neighboring school districts or
Yeah.
I'm asking a question.
So that's a great question. We don't, because we wouldn't necessarily know that data from somewhere else either, right? So how Southern Door might collect that data, that's not necessarily a public data. The overall score is public, you know, our overall ACT score is public, so we can use that to compare. But as far as like pulling out those that are going to 4-year university or 2-year, we have the data of who's going. So we technically could pull that out, but it wouldn't necessarily help us compare if that's.
Even as I was thinking of, I was thinking, how do you do that?
Yeah.
But it's, I guess where I was trying to get at is, you know, it's great that we're doing the intervention. So that we can bring you know, that whole aggregate number, but that's an aggregate number. That's not saying that we don't have students that are very ready to go to the next level, right?
And if you look, so post-secondary readiness is one of the parts on our report card. We're at the top of the state. So it is one of those things where depending on how, again, 50%, 57% or just over 57% of the weight of this is on the growth. So, you know, our attendance is pretty darn good compared to everybody else. Our college readiness of our students actually, which is a little bit of what you're asking, I think, to be honest with you, is right there at or above, you know, all those around us and other schools similar to us. It really is our students who are struggling and our students grow from one to the next. And so by pinpointing that, by knowing that, we know overall, yeah, things are good. We want everybody to grow though. And especially our students who are struggling, we need to make sure that we're building in the scaffoldings within the classroom so that when you're taking a test and you don't do well, we're not just immediately moving on to the next piece, right? Because that's not how you're gonna grow anybody. It's how do you bridge that gap of what's known and what's unknown. And so that's the work that the staff is really looking at and redoing their assessments. We you know, I have my staff come in and on our in-service days, we're bringing, here's my chapter 3 unit test, right? And we're talking as a group, so there's maybe 5 teachers, different categories. So it might be an English teacher and a math teacher and a tech ed teacher, and they're going through that test and looking at it and really talking about, you know, is the question good? How do we make it better? How do you show that a student knows this? I mean, it's really kind of, to be honest with you, fun work to see. Having these teachers come together and really dissect each other's work in a positive way. Because sometimes it can be I'm in my classroom with my door, and I'm high school, we become content specialists, right? So, you know, I kept to go in and observe Ms. Stenzel, who's our new Spanish teacher in a Spanish 4 classroom. I took German. But I'm not observing her and giving suggestions on Spanish. I'm observing and giving her suggestions on how do we connect with kids? How do we build that scaffolding? How do we move, you know, kids, so it's the teaching strategies. And so honestly, when we have our teachers come together in different content areas and share that, they're really kind of asking great questions of each other because they don't know the content. So they're asking, how do kids demonstrate this? How do they know this? What did you teach them for them to be able to answer this? So it's actually pretty exciting and kind of cool stuff to see. And it's the right questions. Because the ACT and the pre-ACT, a lot of the tests, the questions there aren't even, math is going to be very content specific. But there's a science portion. And honestly, you don't have to be a science major or know a ton of science. You need to know how to read and interpret the data. So it's not so much about the science, it's about interpreting what's being shared there. And so that's something that can be done in any classroom. How are you helping kids learn those skills? And so that's the work we're trying to do and really push at, because overall, we're doing really well. Our students who are struggling, and we need to help meet them and grow them where they need to go. So that's the work we're focusing on. So yeah, not to bring it back around, but the report card's not what we want, but we really know exactly what we need to do. And so now it's executing that and pushing that forward.
I have one more question. So I love the idea.
I knew when I said science.
Yeah.
No.
I love the idea that you're like bringing the test to the freshmen and the sophomores so you can kind of see where the growth is. Have you thought of potentially having 7th and 8th graders take the pre-ACT so you can even gauge earlier in the pipeline, you know, what are areas where you need to focus?
Yeah, so we've talked about that. And in fact, one of the, so I didn't get into all the different work we're doing, but one of the things that we're looking at is working with kind of a study curriculum. And what they have and what we have part of our package is not only 9, 10, 11 study package, but it actually goes to 7th and 8th grade study work that can be done at the lower levels. We haven't gotten that far to have those discussions, but I think that that's something that Mark and I will continue to kind of discuss and talk about and look at. Because yeah, I mean, the earlier we can start, and honestly, the questions are asked in such a way that we want to expose students to those types of questions, because it can be confusing if you haven't taken tests or exams or assessments like that.
Mm-hmm.
So not yet, but I think that that's definitely something we're looking at.
I have a question. I don't know if you have that answer to, of our struggling students, are Do you know how many of those are our students that we've had since kindergarten?
That's a great question. So yes, so we can identify our students. One of the pieces of data that we looked at, right, were actually the longitudinal data of students testing. So, right, they have to take the third grade test, they take a fourth grade, they take, and we can identify which are ours and which have come to us. I don't know that I can share exactly that breakdown here.
Right.
But that is part of the data that we are looking at, because it starts, from the beginning, and there's a lot of great work being done at the lower levels that I think is going to have a huge impact on us as we move forward.
And
But
I
yeah,
think,
great question.
we get kids dropped in along the way and
Well, and
now
that's it,
we have to work to catch them up and
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah, and like I said, students coming in with different, different needs or in different areas. Mark can talk much more than I can about our EL population as well, that's continuing to grow, but honestly, they take the assessment too. So we have somebody coming in who can, barely speak the language, but they're taking the test. And so how do we help them and prepare them and get them ready? And that's, that's a piece that's newer to, I think, our community, but is certainly growing quickly.
Not quite sure that the public, when they look at the different schools and the breakdowns, realize the different makeups of all these different schools. It's really not fair to compare all of us because we're not all apples. You're not comparing apples.
Yeah, and not to get too into the minutia of the report cards too, but the percentages, I said over 57% is really around our growth or of our students. That percentage shifts too, based on the makeup of your students. So if you have a higher percentage of students who are free and reduced, or that percentage becomes higher. We're at that point where that weighs higher on us at the 57% than maybe it does at a neighboring district. So because of the makeup of our students. So it's, that's where it gets true. It's hard to always compare everything. And that's why I said, even this 3 months ago, #1 high school, according to U.S. News and Reports, #1 high school, top, 15 in the state. Like it's just an interesting piece of data, all of that, I think.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison kind of was setting, oh, sorry, Mike, you were gonna say. Colin, yeah, I was gonna say Principal Smolin from the middle school is coming down, so he'll talk about some things and some of the work they've been at for. Well, not only because he's been in the position maybe longer than his principal colleagues, but some of the work that has led them to the high scores they've seen the last couple of years. So he's gonna talk about that, but I know he's always working on improvement. I'll just round out for your information. So I have the high school report card in front of me, so it's a 9-page document. Pages 8 and 9 are information but not scored. So page 8, and again, we'll get you all this in some sort of organized way, is the post-secondary preparation piece Keith alluded to, right? And so whether it's like increase in youth apprenticeship, right? So some of the meetings I go to and talking with our legislators, really in Northeast Wisconsin, many of our districts, we want to see post-secondary preparation, not just reported, but count as part of the score, because we're really connecting with businesses and getting kids and families, right, connected in ways we haven't seen in this part of the state in a long time, right? Whether it's some of the work Luxembourg Casco got going and spread kind of to the other areas in our consortium. And then the very last page, something near and dear to a lot of people in Door County, arts course information, right? What types of arts courses and programs do we offer, right? Very important to people in Door County and elsewhere. Well, that's reported, but that's not actually scored. So just a couple of different snapshots where I think, it's not there's no perfect system. I think there's some pieces they're trying to figure out that maybe are a more accurate snapshot. But anyway, let's stop with the high school. And so we've got, significantly exceeds expectations, the way our middle school kids are performing based upon how elementary has set them up. And Mark and his staff have really worked hard to dial in on some things. Mark, what do you got for us?
And I put at your seats, everybody has a sheet. With like PJ Walker's actions to improve our next report. So I just want to touch base on 3 things Keith said first before I go ahead. So he's right. We all have it's a 3-year average. So next year, if we take our test, the 2021 score was actually our lowest score. these last 3 years, so that's coming off in English and math. So for us to be successful, we have to continue to score higher. That's what we have to keep in mind. Two, all the schools, the three that are having these report cards, and Sawyer's a little bit different. We all have different pie charts. So which is, it's a different strength or different percentages of science. So you have a couple areas. I'm gonna touch on a couple of growth is one target group, and then on track to graduation. So we all have that. And then we all have achievement, which I think is easier, a little bit easier to understand. So I'm gonna go through those four. And then the part that's gonna tie this in is like our plan that we've taken. So our plan at the middle school, and we had it all the schools. We brought it, by the last 2 years prior, we have brought in representatives from 66 to talk to the administrative team. And we've grown it to selected teachers. Now this year we brought it in, every teacher has seen this basically from grade 3 through 12. They got to listen and meet and see this, all this information. I mean, at least 15 to 20 different links that has just numerous, where you can just get lost in these charts, comparing yourselves to the state on English and math, your rolling averages, what you're good at, what you need to work on. Now, let's put a couple of strengths for us on the top. You can see we've become a really strong, out of middle school, we've become stronger at writing. And also we've become good at growing kids in language arts. It's just our score in that area was 100%, which is, I don't understand it. I don't know if it's 100%, it's 100. Shouldn't say it's a percent, it's 100. Where math was in the 80s. We've become stronger because of key people like Stacy Judas's help with the reading interventions. So we have over 60 kids in reading intervention, over 50 in math intervention. So they're getting support. Some kids get both, some kids only can get one. That goes on all year. And some kids have been in 6, 7, so they're continually getting the help they need at their level. So those are things that we put in place. Secondly, after our meeting on October 26th at in-service, because we all had the same discussion, our staff sat down, we tried to come up with, okay, everybody, I need you to figure out 4 to 5 standards of what you can see through some of these charts they gave us, like an item analysis, what we're good at, what we need to grow. They also just show us a thing called the heat map that tells us where the points at on the test. So again, not teaching to it, but we're recognizing there's certain areas that are more valuable. So we have to make sure we're really good at that because that's where we want to get the points. So we sat down and as others have as well. So it's none of this is new. And then we picked our standards and picked our actions. And now, well, every 2 weeks, we're going to sit down, just math team, English team, social studies, science, elected teachers, all in one room, talk about one standard you taught these past 2 weeks and discuss with your teammates what you did, show examples of student work. Let's talk about how we can make those questions higher level. So a kid can't just look them up on AI and get the answer. They need to think, you need to talk, and you have to write. So these are things that we're trying to practice. I'm going to go over these 4 areas just briefly. So one thing I mentioned, for at the middle school, the most important piece of that pie for us is called the growth score. It's a little over 33%. We scored just under 90%, or got a score of 89.7 in that area. So that's a high score for us. We like that. And this measures the year-to-year student progress on the test for kids. And it puts value as kids grow. And as your school gets a higher number, there's more value added to it. So that was a good score for us. It's one of the reasons why our score is high. We do know, like I said, this can change year to year, and we could be on the opposite end if we're not careful. But what we did this last year, we beat the state average with scores with the following categories in the sheet. You can see all students, special ed students, economically disadvantaged students, and I put white students, but the problem is you don't see Hispanic or Black students because in the school we have less than 20 in each category. So that's why you're not seeing their names on there. So it's not like that. You have to have over 20 in that area to be scored. So
super quick, Mark, we can tell them the reason for that is otherwise, if everyone knows there's only, I don't know, 7 Norwegian students and it's broken out and they see the scores, well, I know what their scores are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It becomes identifiable. So that's where those little groups, right, unless they get over a certain point, the state's not gonna share it because they don't want just anyone to look at this and say, well, we're talking about young kids in that class. I know who these kids are, if that makes sense, right? So they're not trying to withhold from us. It's just kind of protecting kids. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, the next two pieces of our pie chart are both 25%. So this is gonna be half our score falls in the area of target group. And I'll explain that, and on track to graduation. So a target group is this, there's an identifiable group that has the lowest test scores. And that becomes your target group. Now, to promote, like, your school needs to grow these kids. So one of the things you need to do this is you have to make improvement for them. And so you're gonna see improvement in areas of achievement, of growth, chronic absenteeism. We need to avoid that. And also the attendance and graduation rate. So obviously we're not graduation our level. And then also, again, data doesn't show when there's less than 20 kids. So our score for that was 90.6. That was, again, that's 25. So we're a little over right now, we're a little over 50%. And we'll walk into the next. So, and one of the things that stood out in target groups, our English, we received a score of 100, and math was at 83.1, well beyond the state average in both. So that's great to see. The next 25% group is on track to graduate. We scored here at 87.6, and this on track to graduate, you're gonna hear some things that kind of come up back again. These are how students are progressing, their measures, their engagement and their achievement. And so we're looking at their engagement and their achievement in 8th grade math, a 3-year average, their attendance rate, 3-year average, and the chronic absenteeism rate. So you hear principals talking like, and those messages going, we need kids in school. Why? You don't pay the price just for that year, you're paying it for 3 years. So we really need to have the students be attending our school. We need them, we need to help out families get kids here. It's 25% of at least the middle school book. Everybody's different, but we're over at 75% right now. Now we're getting to this last piece, which you would think would be probably the most valuable, right? But at the middle school, it's not. This is 16.3%. This is achievement. And this is using this, now we're rating their performance in English and math. We get 0 points if they score in the bottom group, which they give a name of below basic, and these names will change down the road. But basic, if you score in the basic category, you get half a point. You score in proficient, like you're meeting expectations, you get 1 point. And if you score advanced, you get 1.5. So we want advanced kids, right? And we want kids to at least get to basic or that half point, so we're getting a score for them. We don't want kids in that below basic. There's no points and there's no value in that. So our goal, as you can see here, we sat down this the beginning of the year and reviewed it again. I spent a lot of time on this today. I was like, I just can't believe how small these numbers are to grow. So we're looking at these scores on the test, looking at the WISE-DASH system. 40% is what we're looking at math. Our goal we set our goal to get to 50%. You can see the difference is only 11 students we're talking about. Now, granted, the students are different, right? 8th grade's out, 5th to 6th is in. Different students, but we're only talking 11. But it's a ton of work to get those 11. And then reading, same type of approach. We had 130 kids fall into this category. Now we need, and if the kids get hit with our reading interventions, the time we're putting in, because we're starting to get better at it, I'll be honest, Stacy Judas is on it like a dog in a bone. She teaches them, she works with them, she answers their questions, she finds when they have things we don't know, she seeks out the answers, she works with their coaches team, it gives them the time to be successful. We're starting to see it pay out. We're seeing it writing, I'm going to see it with the overall English language score. And now you can see, you're looking at 17 kids. Isn't that number, you're looking just under 60% to 73. Now you start lifting your chin up a notch. But we talked about this today. It was like, man, that still is a lot of work, because now that field is becoming narrow, and then we're starting to know the kids. We have a lot of work to do. Just get these numbers to grow. But I just want to show you that. The last part I said, even reducing absenteeism. So our average, I believe, was 8.1%. let's say if I set the goal at 5.5, we're talking 11 kids. And we already have 3 truants already. Yikes, and it's November 5th, and we have 10 on watch. So you can see how quickly, I mean, there's not a lot of kids, but how fast now is our numbers got a little smaller from the last 2 years of the middle school. We have to be very careful. We really need the kids to be at school. So I just want to give you, now remember, their numbers are different. The pie charts and percentages are different, but we're all facing similar things depending on what test we're on. So I hope that gives you a little guidance. I think we're all taking similar approaches. I'll speak for the team. I've been in a lot of these meetings for the last few years, since my 8th year. This is one of the days today that in our meetings, you can tell that everyone's passionate about improving their school. I don't think you're getting any of their service here. Staff, these guys, it's hard work, man. It's hard. So they're really doing their best. I hope you see good things happen. So, all right.
Thank you, Mark. Think he spends any time figuring out the system and working with staff to get it right. As Katie comes on down, I should mention both principals Smolin and Principal Irby so far mentioned CISA 6 and a person. Okay, so there's this guy named Eric. Okay, he's kind of a data guru, Eric Larson, in case the board members are curious. Okay, you and I know, depending on the CISA, depending on the individual, some people are quite helpful, some are not. Right, not meant to bash CISA, that's just the reality historically. Okay, cutting right to it as administrators to tell you. Eric is someone I worked with in my principal days. He was very helpful to me as a principal and to my teachers as we worked on some important things at the high school. So again, my relationship with him was a little bit more at the secondary level. So when the team several years ago was like, all right, we need somebody, but we need someone who's helpful. Right, there's a lot of data people that can come and talk at you. Goodness, Jen Weber goes to curriculum meetings, right? And I mean, goodness, you hear from some people that know all sorts of stuff, but they're not helpful. Okay, so Eric, again, especially from the secondary level that I can speak to firsthand, our elementary principals can tell you they're working with him too. But it's really trying to support those principals so they can support their teachers, so the teachers can support the kids. I mean, that's really what we're dialing in, right? And some of the stuff we're getting figured out, and some of it obviously is still a work in progress. So with that aside, now Principal Katie Smolin, welcome to the podium. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, I also wanted to talk briefly about the report card. And yeah, we've been working really hard and just continuing to strive for better. We do say, Mark, tell us what you're doing in these meetings, talk to us. And so we're getting some good ideas as we go forward because he has put a lot of time and effort. We're all working really hard. As you know, this past year at Sunrise, teachers changed from teaching one subject to teaching all subjects. And there's data to support this move. Less transition for kids has a positive impact on learning. And we feel good about this change, but similar when you clean out a closet, it's pretty messy before it gets better and you put everything back and how you want it. So this year we adopted CKLA, our new literacy curriculum. We're already seeing a positive impact. We want to strategically look at our data. Eric Larson was very helpful in helping us analyze this and knowing how we can really move forward. So we feel like we have like the test pieces in the right spots and we're ready to play. We definitely feel like we're on the right track with literacy. And along with my coaches, Jane Lewis and Constance Vogel are pretty awesome. We're prepared to tackle math in that same way. So that's really our focus right now is engagement and looking at math because it's been like when we switched it up for teachers to teach all subjects, we have teachers who haven't taught math in over 9 years and they're teaching it now. So we need to get that PD in there. I feel like it's going to pay off in the long run that that they're all staying together, teaching just that one, keeping that class together with less transitions. We mentioned already attendance, that is part of my report card score as well. And so we've been working a lot in that area. Our little attendance committee meets weekly and to tackle that and putting positive supports in place, connections with students, making phone calls, and having meetings with families. And so that's our focus. And I did attend a conference recently through ASA. Building administrators. It was really great, made a lot of, learned a lot, made a lot of great connections to other principals doing the same work, transitioning to the science of reading, a lot of them, some who've done it for longer and have seen some really awesome growth. So that was inspiring to me and exciting. And also a lot who are, struggling, like wanting to just be better instructional leaders. So we're just gonna keep growing. That's our job. And thank you, our playground committee. I know you mentioned earlier, some big donations coming in, like some really big ones. So we have a press release coming out shortly. So we're excited to announce that. So thank you for promoting that. I feel like it's important. I know, like, I'm very academic focused, but it's got to get out and play the playground, and one that really shows the love of their community. So I'm going to keep talking about that. Do you have any questions for me?
But really from those different standardized assessments, right? So it's at the Sunrise, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade levels, right? That the kids are starting to take those.
Yep.
Right, so you'll hear from Principal DeVillers here in a little bit. They obviously have some important stuff they're working on, as kind of building blocks for getting the kids in school. But obviously our littlest kids in the standardized testing, that's a little different dynamic, which is why you see the alternate rating stuff in that other summary. So yeah, that's kind of the introduction to that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, you're hearing attendance. I don't want to give anything away. Principal DeVillers might talk about the importance of getting kids at school, but you're seeing whether it's scores or whether it's some of our dedicated staff at each school, including Sawyer you're about to hear from. Like, it's really hard for our staff to work with a kiddo who needs help when the kid's not there. Right? So I mean, that is a challenge. So Principal DeVillers, welcome.
Thanks. So just as a reminder to you and the public, we do take an alternative rating. We don't have testing. That doesn't start till 3rd grade in our district. That doesn't mean we don't get some information on demographics and information on attendance, and we continue to work, because I will say it over and over again. What happens, what you've just heard about, starts at Sawyer. And so it's so important, just like Superintendent just said, about having kids be in school. And we track that. We recently, it was in my report, that our counselor, Ms. Martins, and I took a training on attendance, which is a more proactive, multi-level system of support approach. Up until this time, it's been very reactive. When kids aren't in school, we keep track. When they get to 5 days, we make a call. When they get to 10 days, the letter goes home. Very formal letter. It's not, and I always call every parent before I send that letter, because I want to come from a place of support, not a place of shame on you, because there's a million reasons why a child isn't in school. There really is. And we're not going to get anywhere with engaging families and helping them, especially first-time families, helping their child do school and do school well, and being a parent of a school-age child for the first time is a big learning curve for some. We're not going to do that well unless we're focusing on attendance, and we are focusing on attendance and keeping track of that. So we have some new learning we'll be bringing to staff later. And what we found, and I think this was just as a reminder, we're being too reactive. We need to do more universally. Katie at 3rd through 5th grade is doing more of that. We need to fall in line with that. And teachers need to play a more active role, not just the office calling out parents, but rather the teachers in the classroom with relationships with the families need to do that. So we will be continuing to work on that. That's the one way I feel we can make a change in the report card data that you've heard later on, is to have them in school, understand what it means to be a school-age parent, and support them when they're not there, and when for sure when they're there. The other piece of this, and you've heard me say multi-level system that comes out quite often, is to do that. That's new for Sawyer in the 3 years that I've been here, to look at what we do universally, what we do for kids who struggle a bit, and how we add more time and more deeper learning, that we don't just, I think Keith said something at the high school, it's very similar. If the child is reading a concept, moving on without doing that, that's not what we're about. And I'm proud to say that with the help of the coaches and Jen's help with teaching and learning, and every staff member, we have teacher associates doing intervention with our students. We just got done with progress monitoring. That means the coaches and the interventionists, and we have a literacy coach, we have a math coach, we also have Carly Martins, who serves as the SEL person. We are looking at the whole child to see where they are and provide intervention. We call it What I Need, or WIN. And those are the foundational building block pieces that we work on in math literacy and social emotional learning. Every child was placed and every child is getting served. We call it all hands on deck. We really do, because special ed teachers, regular ed teachers, teacher associates, I wish I could take a group, but I can't because I have other things that I want to do, but I'm still waiting for the day when I can. And working with all the kids on what they need, it's a beautiful thing and it's never been done before in the 3 years since I've been here. We didn't even think, I remember standing up in front of the staff, little Theo, 3 years ago now saying, do you know what multi-level systems of support are? Do you know? And the majority of them didn't know, and that's not a slam on anybody. That's a newer way of looking at things. And I want to say they not only know, but in the 3 years they are practicing it and they're living it every day and they understand. And we finalized our mission and vision, and in there it says every child wants to learn, that we know they want to learn, and we have to unlock how that happens. Excuse me, so besides attendance and trying to be more proactive on that and working toward that, and I hope to bring you more information on that in the future, we'll also continue with that literacy math and SEL focus on taking them where they are and helping them to do school and be successful at the very youngest ages. And so that's, even though we don't have a report card like everybody else, those are what we keep track of constantly. So that's kind of my report card piece, but I did want to tell you something interesting that's going to be happening. Amro Elementary School principal contacted me, and I think this is a real compliment to people. And to you who have long ago, I don't remember how long, someone's gonna have to remind me, started full-time 4K. Because they want to come here and see a full-time 4K program that's run well, and they wouldn't call if they weren't impressed. So they've called, they're coming, the superintendent is coming, the teacher, the director of teaching and learning, and Dave, the principal at the elementary school, because they now offer a half-time program, but they want to see a successful full-time program. So they're coming November 30th in the morning. They're going to chat with the 4K team and me a little bit, and then they're actually going to see Southern Door as well. I just think that's a real compliment to those of you that made that decision to offer full-time 4K here, because they wouldn't come if it wasn't, and it's a fabulous team, as you know, when they come before. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal DeVillers. The Amro superintendent and I have known each other for 23 years, and I may or may not have stayed at his house recently during some bow hunting. And he may have even brought it up then. Hey, you guys are on our list of someone we want to come visit because we want to expand, and we know you have as well. Tina, you were about to say.
Well, I can look at what they're saying and know that we made the right decision in hiring coaches. That was good investment for our district, and I think we're seeing the payoff now already. So I guess I'm just glad that we made that decision and that it's working.
It absolutely is. If I could just respond to that, when we dig into the minute pieces of the district report card, you're going to see the payoff of that, especially in the area that we've been laser focused on for the last several years. And literacy, you're going to see the data. It shows it does.
So the directors, they thought, in support of what the principals were talking about when we were meeting this morning, they said, you know what, why don't we let them kind of do their thing? And then we'll kind of come up together. In essence, yes, they have their areas they work on, but in support of what's been said. So we've kind of got the double team at the podium right now. So it's all yours, ladies.
Jen takes notes, and I'm like, we're just gonna have lots to say. She's really good at it. She's really good at it.
I mean, you know, first of all, I think it's really important to just mention that clearly the school accountability report cards are about way more than test scores, right? It's about way more than academic scores on a math or literacy or science test. You heard our colleagues talk about everything from attendance to social emotional learning to engagement to, right? I mean, all of those things are rolled into this. And so I think that what the accountability report cards allow us to do is get a really good look at that minute data so that we can be really, really intentional about what we focus on. And it doesn't have to be the same intentionality at each building. So, and that way it's really very helpful. So my big takeaway from all of this and my focus is that intentionality. So we know that we have certain things that we need to work on, and we need to
I'm very, let's make an action plan. What's step one? Let's go.
And mine is similar, you know, in comparison, but I focus more on growth and I focus on the minutia because I get to all of our work that we do in special education and working with students with 504 plans and all students in general is really individualized. And so I take the same approach with the school report card, and I look at growth of students. So not looking at, you know, we got to go from below basic all the way up to advanced because that's a humongous leap, but we look at small growth. Our students not attending, okay, cool, now we want them to attend. So that's what we're gonna work on with that student. Do we have a student who runs from the classroom? No good, right? Now we want them to sit in the classroom for an entire class period and then try to get them into a full day of school. So it's really looking at students as individuals and what I need. You've heard some of the principals say, and moving the needle slowly but surely, because we can't chew it all at once. We've got to take it chunk by chunk. And so talking to our teachers who are fantastic and ambitious and passionate, and they want to do it all at once, but we can't tackle some of the things that we're seeing by doing it all at once. So it's really breaking that down, following our IEPs, looking at 504 plans, helping students see and be a part and be accountable of their own learning. And we can't do that unless they're engaged. So finding those creative ways to engage students, making sure students feel good when they come here. And so that's really my focus and in working with our team, who then supports all of the other teams amongst the school. And one thing that, you know, I know all of our admin are on the same page with, and I want to say aloud here tonight is that, you know, we can talk about low scores, we can talk about struggling students, we can talk about non-attenders, right? All of the things. But we have to keep in mind too that every school district in the state of Wisconsin is doing those same things. They have those same issues, maybe different, right? Looks a little bit different. So it's not that, oh, you know, this is what we're dealing with and no one else is. We all are. And so we have to find ways to not only just improve the scores, but make our kids feel good and make them want to come to school so that they're engaged in the learning and all of the cool stuff and awesome stuff that hard work our teachers are doing really makes a harder impact. And so, of course, I got long-winded again, but that's my vision.
I think they'll have more chances as we go through other learning sessions and the board retreat in February, things that we're familiar with, but otherwise, if you think of things, you can reach out to the ladies or come through me and I can funnel it their direction. And just like with the principal, we'll go from there. Go ahead.
I have a question kind of for everyone. If there's something that we as a school board can do to help you, if there's something that you need, bring it forward and let us know, and you know, we can see how we can make it happen, because you know, there was a need for the coaches years back, and we're seeing how that is helping. So if there's more that we can do to help you, you need to know that.
Yes, thank you. Faith, that's the first thing I'm gonna ask for. I think, yeah. We got it.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we have business manager Jake Holtz. What do you got for us?
We'll talk about report cards. Just kidding, cause.
Yeah.
So I sent out, my reports, the email, the big thing I'll draw your attention to, the tax levy update. Just to put those numbers into context, we were the only district to decrease our tax levy, this year. It's at least the second year in a row. Sebastopol stayed the exact same, but we're also the lowest tax levy in mainland Door County, and we, for the first time in it was 20 years again, we are not the highest tax rate out of the school districts in Door County. So to break down those numbers, there you go. It's at least the third year in a row that we're the lowest tax levy off the top of my head. So the other thing I'll note, because this came up in an email with the board member and the county, and the tax report. Admittedly, there's been a lot of struggles with DPI lately. And I know it's not just the business office, but it's kind of reared its head in the past week or so. I have been reaching out to colleagues who have echoed the same sentiment. I think it boils down to customer service and communication. How you treat people and how you communicate what you need. I've gone from, in the time I've been a business manager, 8 years now, from a department that's willing to help and make sure that districts are moving forward, to more of a regulatory, it feels like, at times, department. And so started reaching out, just kind of, it's really reared its head in the last few weeks, especially, at least in my department. I know Dan's seen that more at the state level over the past few months. But because that came out with some updates that they've did with software, and how that ended up reporting the tax levy to the county, that did rear its head a little bit today locally, more than it has in the past. We're fine, nothing's wrong with the tax levy. I think it's corrected.
Maybe without saying too much, that there was no concern over our numbers per se.
Yeah.
There was a concern over the expiration of the operational referendum that we know, right? All the legal wording was done, the voters had approved it. They had it expiring in 2024, and of course, we quickly realized that's not right. And I think even the county was kind of like, we got this information, we don't think this is right. And then it was, oh, DPI, there was some system problems. So there's been a lot of layers, and we won't get too far into it tonight, but Jake and I both thought, like, we should just give you a heads up if anyone were to hear, like, did something happen with the tax levy or with the referendum? No, we've done everything right, we're good, county's working with us. It's somewhere the mechanism, which unfortunately flows through another DPI system, there is yet another recent issue. So that's just the reality.
So if I'm reading between the lines, it's because we moved from 3 year to 5 year.
Well, no one could think that, but it's not.
But it is
not
really.
It's their report, yeah.
All right.
Good guess because of the.
Yeah.
Because we're only on year 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I'm,
Yeah.
so like
it's
next
good
year
guess.
would be
Good guess.
3, so that's where.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
well, good luck.
thank you.
All right. So next we're down to, because there is no other, so we're down to,
Yeah, I'll just touch on one item. You've heard a lot of
Yes.
good information tonight. And again, our business meeting, I think for the record, was about 22 minutes.
Yep.
Right, the report section, because of all this important information and just a chance to be able to talk to you about it and share information openly with you and the public is about an hour. Right, so that's just kind of where we're at right now, which is good that we didn't have a 2-hour business meeting and then the hour of the last talk, right? Wouldn't have worked so well. The one item I'm going to give you is just totally different. And it's an acknowledgement to some of our staff members. And Denise is really running with this group, some school safety, and specifically, I'm going to throw the term at you, reunification planning. And didn't know I was going to say this, or she'd say you didn't have to. All right, so we've got a committee with reps from the different schools, and Officer Jenner as our SRO and linked to the PD, and others that have really done an excellent job over about the last, I'm just going to say roughly 15 months. Getting some things that we actually started before COVID, to kind of go off of something he said. And then obviously all the districts and the county and the law enforcement's working together, everyone had bigger fish to fry. Okay, but coming back to this reunification concept that, if there's some sort of incident, and again, everyone thinks of, like an active shooter situation or whatnot in this day and age, of course, we have to plan for that. But I can tell you, in my principal days, we had railroad tracks that went right behind the high school and the middle school. Here we know sometimes traffic gets rerouted. There's all sorts of strange things that can come up where we might have a situation where, again, kids are perfectly safe in the building. And the reality is we need to safely move them, right? We need to move them to a spot where then their parents can come safely get them, because coming, whether to here or to Sunrise or to Sawyer for whatever reason, with, again, whether it's on campus or even close to campus or on the highway or whatever, it just can't happen. So this group has been at this now for a few years using a really big model and breaking it down. to how a district, if it's one building, can handle it, or if it's a bigger issue, districts will work together. And again, Ann and our team have been at it. They had another meeting just the other day, and they spent a little bit of time with the admin team this morning, giving us appropriate updates. And I just wanted to kind of, with my report, acknowledge the work they're doing and give a little preview that they're gonna have some more information for members of the public. They got kind of a cool little practice thing planned to you know, check the system without anybody getting nervous about, you know, active shooter drills and some of that type of stuff. And we'll appreciate in advance some parents that will volunteer to help us test the system and how that all works. And anyway, it was just timely because they had their most recent meeting and talked with us today, and I just wanted to call that out and include it in the additional part of my report tonight. Just a couple brief report card comments in support of what they're talking about are also added. And that'll be the part that that report that I sent out to all staff, as you know, I always do, and you'll get that too. So I'll stop talking at that.
And thank you and anyone else that's involved in that. It's good to have those plans done. Hopefully, we never need the plan. You gotta have the plan. So that's great. You know, the only comment I have about everything that was said tonight, real brief in that we've covered this in many learning sessions. Our demographics have changed or are changing in our school district. And it's important for all of us to realize the opportunity that we have now to service all those demographics. And part of, I mean, it was touched on from a few people tonight, but those demographic changes are just different, right? When I'm out in the public, and I've spoke to a few of those demographic changes, you know, to people, and they're very surprised. They're really, we have that much of whatever, you know, because we've gone through those, right? Jake has given us because much of the demographic information is tracked and we get that, but it's Sturgeon Bay is not, you know, it's not different than it like any other school. Demographics are changing, and we have some difficulty to meet those. So anyway,
without maybe belaboring the point, I'll just say, so like Joel Kitchens and I have talked on and off with my time that he and I have known each other. And, you know, I've said, I don't know what exactly it's called someday, but there are dynamics, not just across our state or the Midwest or the region, but specifically within our state, that county seat school districts were an example, right? All 72 counties have one, where, you know, other districts might have similar challenges too, but when you're the county seat, there are certain things that come with it, right? There are certain pieces with services. Maybe it's some of, you know, a higher percentage of the low income housing in the area, right? Again, it's not a complaint. It's not a blame. It's not an excuse. It's just reality. And as Joel and I have talked about, it's like, yeah, that exists in every county. I grew up in Marinette, as some of you know, so, you know, Marinette sees its fair share of challenges, and as does other aspects of Marinette County, but it's a little more concentrated in Marinette at times. So I guess those are just dynamics. The admin team, again, would never use that as a blame game or an excuse, but we're aware of it. And I think, Mike, you know, you're pointing that out, I think, on behalf of other residents that are informed and see some of that too.
absolutely. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So we need to stay here.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion.
all right. Mr. Spirka, do we have a second? And we have Mr. Wood. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.